You know that feeling when you're holding on to something so tightly, someone, a memory, a plan for your life, and no matter how hard you try, it just keeps slipping away. It's like trying to hold sand in your hands. At first, you scoop up as much as you can, but the tighter you squeeze, the more it falls through your fingers, and you stand there wondering why you're losing what you fought so hard to keep. That's actually how the brain works. Psychologists call it loss aversion. We're wired to hate losing things more than we enjoy gaining new ones. That's why you stay in situations that exhaust you. Why you keep checking your phone even though you already know the answer. Why you hold on to a relationship, a job, or even a version of yourself that no longer feels like home. Your mind tells you, better this than starting over, not because it's right, but because it's familiar. But there comes a moment, usually after too many nights feeling heavy, when something inside you just stops. You don't explode, you don't collapse, you just get quiet. That quiet is what researchers call emotional shutdown, the point where your mind finally says enough. And strangely, that's often the moment you begin letting go, not because you want to, but because you can't carry it anymore. If you're here, maybe you're in that moment, the moment where you start to loosen your grip, not out of anger, but out of honesty. And that's where real healing begins. Not when you force yourself to forget, but when you finally understand why letting go is sometimes the only way to feel free again. And to fully understand that freedom, we need to go deeper into the real psychology behind why you held on for so long, and why letting go feels both terrifying and necessary at the same time. When you think about it, letting go isn't actually the hard part. The hard part is everything that happens before it. The confusion, the hope, the what-ifs, the fear of starting over. That's the part that keeps you stuck. You replay old conversations, you try to decode mixed signals, you tell yourself, maybe it can still work, maybe it'll feel different tomorrow. But deep down, you already know it won't. What you're really fighting isn't the person or the situation. It's the version of yourself that refuses to accept the truth. And the truth is this: we don't hold on because it's healthy. We hold on because it's familiar. Your brain loves patterns, even painful ones. There's something strangely comforting about what you already know. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. The more familiar something is, the more your mind feels attached to it, even if it hurts you. That's why you keep going back to people who weren't good for you. That's why you miss routines that drained you. Your brain confuses predictability with safety. Think about that one person you tried so hard to keep, not because they always treated you right, but because losing them meant losing the story you built around them. You weren't just holding on to them, you were holding on to the idea of who you could have been together, the future you imagined, the memories you hoped to create. Letting go feels impossible because it feels like you're deleting a whole version of your life. But the truth is, that version only lived in your mind. And then there's another layer, identity. Sometimes you're not attached to the person, you're attached to who you became when you were with them. Maybe they made you feel wanted when you didn't know how to want yourself. Maybe they filled a space you never learned to fill alone. Losing them feels like losing a part of your identity, like someone cut a piece out of you. But that's not a loss, that's a reminder that you built something on top of emptiness. And emptiness isn't meant to be covered, it's meant to be healed. You also hold on because of guilt. You tell yourself, maybe I didn't try enough, maybe I should have been better, but that guilt comes from a place of fear, not truth. You're afraid that letting go means you failed. You're afraid that walking away makes you the bad guy. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for the other person, is accept that something has reached its natural ending. Not everything broken needs to be fixed. Some things just need to be released. And let's be honest, a part of you still hopes for closure, a perfect explanation, a clean ending, something that will make everything make sense. But closure rarely comes from other people. It comes from understanding your own patterns, from knowing why you stayed longer than you should have, from seeing your wounds clearly instead of blaming yourself for having them. That's the beginning of emotional maturity, not pretending you're fine, but finally understanding why you weren't. Maybe that's where you are right now, standing in the middle of your old life and your new one, afraid to step forward, but too tired to go back. And that's okay. This is the part where clarity begins to form. The part where you start recognizing what was real, what was fear, and what was habit. The part where you realize that letting go isn't losing someone, it's finally coming back to yourself. There's a point in every journey where holding on stops feeling like strength and starts feeling like exhaustion. You don't always notice it right away. It creeps in slowly through shorter patience, quieter mornings, and that strange heaviness you carry around without knowing why. And then one day something shifts. Not because you made a brave decision, but because your mind reaches its limit. It's that quiet moment when you catch yourself thinking, I can't keep doing this. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of release. Letting go doesn't start with courage. It starts with fatigue, the emotional kind. The kind that drains your appetite, tightens your shoulders, and turns even simple tasks into effort. Psychologists call this cognitive overload, when your brain is juggling more emotional weight than it can reasonably handle. When that happens, your system naturally begins shutting down non-essential attachments. It's like your mind saying, if you won't set this down, I will. And here's the thing, your mind always knows before you do, long before you consciously admit something has ended. Your body senses the truth. You stop texting first. You stop hoping the next day will magically fix everything. You stop replaying the past with the same intensity. The attachment doesn't disappear overnight. It just starts losing its grip. And that shift, though painful, is a sign of healing beginning beneath the surface. One study from the University of Michigan found that when people go through emotional loss, the brain's default mode network, the part used for self-reflection, activates more strongly than usual. That's why you suddenly think deeper, question everything, feel everything. It's your mind reorganizing itself, rewriting old patterns, clearing emotional space you didn't even realize was blocked. Letting go is not a single moment, it's a neurological process. But because the process is slow, it feels confusing. One day you're okay, the next day you're flooded with memories. One moment you feel ready to move on, the next you're grieving a version of yourself you weren't ready to lose. That's normal. Healing is never linear. It bends and loops and circles back. Not because you're failing, but because your mind is trying to integrate the past instead of erase it. And somewhere in that back and forth, something softer begins to grow. Acceptance. Not the dramatic kind, where you say, fine, I'm done, but the quiet kind. The kind where you stop checking your phone at night, where the old conversations stop echoing in your head, where you stop imagining alternate endings and start imagining your own life again. Acceptance doesn't arrive with clarity, it arrives with calm. Letting go isn't the moment you stop caring, it's the moment you stop sacrificing yourself to what's already gone. It's when you realize peace doesn't come from fixing the past, it comes from finally stepping out of it. And in that shift, in that small but powerful surrender, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Room to breathe. You probably know this feeling. You keep holding on to someone or something because you're scared of what happens if you finally let it go. Maybe it's a relationship, a dream, or a version of yourself you've tried so hard to protect. At first, it feels like strength. You tell yourself, if I just try harder, maybe it'll work. But one day, you look at your life and realize the thing you're holding on to isn't holding you back anymore. It's just wearing you down. People don't usually talk about this part, the slow part, the quiet part. where holding on starts to do more damage than losing ever could. You're not fighting for the person or the dream anymore. You're fighting with yourself. You're trying to keep something alive that has already stopped giving you anything back. And that's usually the moment when letting go first enters your mind, not because you want to, but because staying is starting to hurt more than leaving. Psychologists actually have a term for this. It's called cognitive dissonance, when your mind is trying to hold two opposite truths at the same time. Like, I know this is over, and I'm scared to let it go. A study from the University of Alberta found that long-term cognitive dissonance increases stress, disrupts sleep, and often leads to emotional burnout. In simple words, the more you hold on to something that isn't right for you anymore, the more your body and mind will push back. And you feel that, don't you? You feel it in your mood, in the way you wake up tired even when you sleep enough, in that tight feeling in your chest that shows up out of nowhere, in the way you keep telling yourself, I'm okay, even though a part of you knows you're not. That heaviness isn't weakness. It's your body saying, this is too much. Something needs to change. Letting go isn't giving up. It's listening. But here's the hard truth. Your heart doesn't want to lose what it's attached to, even if it hurts, even if you know it's done. That's why letting go feels terrifying. It feels like stepping into a blank space with no map, no guarantees, just you and whatever comes next. But what you don't realize yet is that this blank space is actually freedom. It's room to breathe, room to recover, room to slowly return to the version of you that got lost while trying to hold everything together. And when you finally loosen your grip even a little, you notice something surprising. Letting go doesn't hurt as much as holding on. It's the fear before letting go that hurts. The overthinking, the what-ifs, the stories you replay in your head at night. Once you finally release it, even just 5%, your mind gets quieter, your body relaxes, life feels a little lighter. So if you're here, maybe you're at that point, the point where you're asking yourself, do I really want to carry this anymore? It's not a dramatic moment. It's not loud. It's usually soft, honest, and simple. And sometimes, that tiny bit of honesty is exactly where real healing begins. Letting go isn't one big decision. It's a bunch of small, honest moments where you slowly stop fighting what hurts you. Most people think that letting go of everything is dramatic, like cutting off the world and starting over. But the truth is simpler. Letting go usually looks like quiet changes. You stop replying to certain messages. You stop forcing conversations that always leave you drained. You stop trying to convince someone to care. You stop expecting an apology you know may never come. It's not a bold announcement. It's you finally choosing peace over chaos. The weird thing is, you often don't notice this shift while it's happening. One day you wake up and realize that the thing you used to obsess about doesn't hit as hard. You still remember it, but it doesn't control you anymore. That's when you know a part of you has finally had enough. Psychology calls this emotional disengagement, the point where your mind starts detaching to protect you. A study from the University of Arizona found that the brain naturally begins to distance itself from situations that feel chronic, painful, or unrewarding. In simple terms, your brain gets tired of suffering before you consciously decide to move on. What makes letting go feel so heavy isn't just losing someone or something, it's losing the version of yourself that existed in that story. You're not just walking away from people, you're walking away from old expectations, old hopes, old plans. And that's why you sometimes feel confused, even after making the right choice. You're not just grieving the person or the situation, you're grieving the future you thought you were going to have. That's a normal part of psychological separation. Anyone who's gone through a breakup, a failed friendship, a job loss, or even a big life shift knows that feeling. And here's the part many people never say out loud. Letting go can feel like failure. You think, maybe I didn't try hard enough, or maybe I'm giving up too soon. But letting go isn't quitting. It's recognizing what's no longer healthy for you. It's realizing that holding on was costing you more than losing it ever will. Sometimes you stay somewhere too long because you think it will get better. Sometimes you stay because leaving feels scary. And sometimes you stay because you don't want to admit it hurt you. Letting go means you're finally being honest with yourself. Eventually, there comes a moment where relief starts to slip in. Not happiness yet, but a lighter feeling, like your body is taking the first deep breath it's had in a long time. You stop checking who texted. You stop replaying old conversations in your head. You stop chasing answers. Instead, you find yourself paying more attention to small things again. Your morning routine, your thoughts, your energy. This shift is your mind recalibrating. When you let go of what drains you, the nervous system slowly moves out of survival mode. You start feeling like a human again, not someone constantly bracing for impact. Letting go also teaches you something important about yourself, what you value, what you tolerate, and what you'll never accept again. Once you release something that wasn't good for you, your standards change almost automatically. You start noticing red flags quicker. You protect your energy better. You choose people and environments more carefully. It's not because you're cold or guarded, it's because you finally understand the cost of holding on to the wrong things. And here's the simplest truth. Letting go isn't the end of your story. It's the part where you stop carrying what's heavy so you can actually move forward. You don't need to rush. You don't need to bounce back. You just need to keep choosing what feels honest and healthy for you. Bit by bit, you'll realize that letting go didn't break you, it freed you. And that freedom is what every next chapter will be built on. There's a moment, after you've let go of everything, people, expectations, old versions of yourself, where life suddenly feels unfamiliar. Not bad, not good, just different. Almost quiet. At first, that quiet can feel uncomfortable, like you don't know what to do with all the space you used to fill with overthinking, worrying, or trying. But if you stay with it long enough, that same quiet slowly becomes the place where you breathe again. This is the part no one talks about, the calm that comes after the storm, the calm that feels strange simply because you're not used to it. When you've been carrying emotional weight for a long time, peace doesn't show up gently. Sometimes it sneaks in slowly, like waking up one day and noticing that your chest feels a little lighter. Sometimes it arrives as a sudden realization, like you're finally tired of hurting, so your mind just stops picking at the wound. Psychology calls this emotional extinction, the process where the brain weakens old emotional responses after repeated release. A study from the University of Washington found that the more someone practices letting go of intrusive thoughts or painful memories, the less intense those emotional triggers become. It's not forgetting, it's healing. And when the emotional noise fades, you start noticing things you haven't felt in a long time. Small joys come back, the warmth of sunlight, the taste of your morning coffee, the relief of a quiet evening where your thoughts don't chase you. These aren't dramatic moments. They're simple, grounded signs that your nervous system is finally settling. Letting go gives your mind space to reset, and suddenly the world feels a little clearer. You stop living in survival mode, and you start living in the present again. Another thing happens too. You begin to feel more like yourself. Not the old you, but the you that's been buried under expectations, responsibilities, and emotional clutter. When you let go of everything that wasn't yours to carry, you also let go of the roles you were performing to keep others comfortable. You stop pretending. You stop shrinking yourself. You stop trying to earn love that should have been freely given, and without all that noise, you finally get to hear your own voice again. With that comes clarity. You start recognizing what drains you and what feeds you. You notice who brings peace into your life and who brings confusion. You draw boundaries with less guilt. You protect your energy without feeling selfish. You make choices based on what feels right for you, not what keeps the peace. This isn't you becoming cold, this is you becoming aligned. When you've lost enough, you learn to choose carefully, and eventually something shifts even deeper. You stop fearing loss, not because loss doesn't hurt, but because you've survived it before. You realize you don't break the way you thought you would. You realize you don't need to cling to anything out of fear. You understand that people can leave, situations can change, chapters can end, and you will still be okay. That kind of inner stability isn't coldness, it's freedom. It's the freedom of knowing you can let go and you won't lose yourself in the process. This is the psychology behind letting go of everything. It's not about becoming detached or emotionless, it's about clearing space for a life that doesn't hurt to live. When you release what isn't meant for you, you make room for what is. You stop surviving and start living. And one day, without forcing anything, you'll look back and realize that letting go wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of the chapter where you finally chose yourself. Letting go isn't about forgetting, it's about finally choosing peace over the weight you've been carrying. And if you're still learning how to do that, it's okay. You're already moving forward just by being here. So take your time, breathe, and let things fall into place at their own pace. And if you want more videos that help you understand your heart a little better, feel free to stay, to follow, or just come back when you need a quiet place to land.